Hello, how are you? Can everybody hear me? Help me out on the right-hand side because I'm still a newbie at this. So I am hoping you can see and hear me all right. I can see Brian there, and there's John, Mr. John Bennett, who left us a joke to do that we couldn't possibly do, and lots of yeses. Brilliant. Well, thank you all for being here. Welcome to Home Games. This is our second weekly webinar. And the idea, for those of you that haven't been before, is that we do a webinar that doesn't really have very much to do with Corona or COVID or any unpleasantness at all. These are the kind of topics we're going to cover that we might cover if none of this unpleasantness was happening. We will touch on a few things that are kind of affected by it because we can't really help that. But this isn't a session on how to cope with isolation or any of all that kind of stuff. There's loads of good stuff happening on that elsewhere, but not here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Tim Page, who I hope you can see. I can certainly see him. Oh, wow, look at that. We've got somebody dialing in from sunny Cape Town in South Africa. And Ben notices the oil can guitar on the wall behind me, which I bought in Cape Town from the guy in I can't remember the name of the place, actually. It was very, very near the V&A Hotel. Anyway, and the dude that makes them was right there, and I bought it, and then I carried it to Australia with me, and then I carried it all the way home from there, which was awesome. It's actually quite hard to play. But there you go. That's guitar news for you today. I got asked what the t-shirt theme would be today. Last week, as some of you know, it was Misfits. This week it is, of course, as you've all already realised, from British grindcore stalwarts Carcass. And they are always worth a bash. Particularly enjoy albums like Exhumed to Consume and some other favourites. There we go. I don't know if you can see Tim. I'm hoping that you can. I think Tim can't hear me at the moment. So we'll pop him off for a sec and see what we can do about that. And I'm going to share my screen now and get into the presentation. So we will just pop that over there, and we'll focus in on that one. I haven't yet got to the stage where I can do this without narrating what I'm doing. We can see Tim, that's good. Thank you, Chris and Phil and Alison, for saying that. Can we hear Tim? Is Tim audible? Can Tim speak? I don't know if Tim can speak or not. He can certainly... We're doing it by chat at the moment, but there's no reason why we can't. But we'll get on with what we're doing anyway. Here's what I thought we'd cover yet. Are we having fun yet? Well, that's our little first bit there. He needs to open his mouth. I wanted to cover something that came out this morning from the FCA in their Dear CEO letter. We can hear you type, Tim, but we can't hear you speak. But that's, I think you might need to switch your mic on. And we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, then what advisors would do with a time machine, I'm going to explore and explain that a little bit. Then we'll do a little bit of digital business with the actual Tim that's there, and then I've got a joke which isn't the one that John told us because I can't do that one. It was a bit blue, but we'll get on there. So let's get into the Dear CEO bit. So FCA put out a Dear CEO letter this morning with a couple of really interesting things on it. And I know we said we wouldn't do a load of Corona stuff, but there's just a little bit of value, I think, in getting into this. And these are some relaxations and some things that they're doing in light of all the current nonsense. And two kind of main things here. First of all, around client identity verification, and we're going to touch on that in the digital business section as well, and then something on MiFID 10% drop rules. So I'll just cover both of these briefly. So the client ID stuff, well, we're seeing lots and lots of changes at the moment with how firms are dealing with client ID and verification, with accepting scan docs and so on. And as I say, we'll get into that in a wee minute. But FCA recognising that the traditional methods for verifying identity aren't really working. And during this period, they expect firms to comply with usual obligations. But the truth is, right, that within the regulations as they stand, that there's a huge amount of flexibility in terms of how you can do this. And the FCA lists some here. And this is the way that the FCA in these kind of letters kind of reminds people of what they can do, not necessarily what they are doing. Oh, I thought I heard something from Tim there. He's just giving up and going away. That's what happens in Bury St Edmunds. You're absolutely right, Matt. You're absolutely right. So here's some little reminders. Scans we know about, preferably as a PDF. This issue about sending things by email, I think, is huge, right? There's so much stuff being sent around by email at the moment, much of it insecurely, and that's not a big help at all. Third-party ID systems you can do, and with selfies or videos as well. So anybody that's opened something like a Monzo account knows that there's a system called OnFido, and it allows you to record a little selfie and take a picture, a wee snap of your driving license or another form of ID and submit that. Those kind of systems are fine. You can place reliance on due diligence. So if you've got a feed coming in from the bank, refresh my page, says somebody, says Andy Schleider. That's interesting. Is something, how's everybody else with me? Oh, another Mark. That's all right then. Here's Jane from Money Honey, who do lots and lots of online verification and so on, saying they use LinkedIn, and you can tell lots from past jobs. You get a photo and you can do that in any way. See the passport in hand and scanned copies, absolutely. So you can place reliance on others. You can use commercial providers. Again, that sort of on FIDO thing. And then what Jane's talking about there is that third last bullet point, I think, gather and analyze additional data. There are lots and lots and lots of ways that are permissible to verify client ID. And it's really interesting, I think, that platforms, not all, but many, are quite a long way behind in terms of that online verification. And that fraud is a huge thing, right? Especially at the moment. And we don't want all kinds of unpleasant stuff happening, and we do get news that the fraudsters are increasing their toe rag style activities, and we definitely want rid of that stuff. But nonetheless, there's plenty of flexibility. So I think we'll get into this, assuming that we can get going with Tim properly in a little bit later. We'll get into that in a wee bit. Probably more exciting though is the 10% drop rule. Now, anybody that's unfamiliar, discretionary clients, right? So not clients of advisory propositions, but discretionary clients need to be sent a little note saying that their portfolios have dropped by 10% over a month within a quarterly reference period. And so if your portfolio drops by 10%, you get a note saying, "Hi, Mark, your portfolio has dropped by 10%. Well done, must feel nice to have less money than you had before." And then if it happens again, another 10%, you need to get another letter and another letter and another letter for each 10% that it drops in a quarter. So the FCA this morning, on the first day of a new quarter, with reference from last night, so the last day of the last quarter, have said, yes, well, I think lots of people are only here for Tim's insights, to be very honest. Tim is now a flashy icon. I'm just going to see if I can re-invite Tim back in. It says he's connecting, so hopefully that'll work okay. Now, come on, Tim, you can do this, says Chris. That's funny. Very rude. The issue with this, so everyone's getting a little bit excited because maybe these things don't need to go out, but they do. What the SEA is saying is that the first 10% drop in a quarterly reference period still needs to be sent, but subsequent ones don't. They still come to the intermediary, but they don't need to be sent on to the clients, and that's until the end of September. So that's a little bit better. Jane, here, I'm not sure, Jane, if you're talking about the signature one or the 10% drop, but we're saying good news from FCA and shows are listening to PFS and others. I think that is about 10% if you're mentioning PFS there, because PFS had a release about this a day or two ago. And I completely agree. It does show that they're listening. I'm not sure it really helps that much, though, because we've just had a load of these 10% drop letters go out, several rounds of them in some cases, and we're still going to need the next set to go out because most quarterly reference periods either start on the 1st of April or the 6th of April. Some have different periods, but lots and lots of them start on those dates. So clients are still going to get another bout of these letters if we see more falls. And one of the stupid things about this rule is that even if the client's portfolio rises during that period and then falls another 10%, they get a 10% drop letter. They don't get a 10% rise letter. So there we are. So it is a bit of a help. The truth is, this regulation needs to be gone, especially for IFAs with discretionary powers. I'm sure lots of you know, but MiFID II, where this stuff comes from, is kind of European-wide regulation, and most of it, stuff like this, isn't aimed at IFAs that have been through RDR that are disclosing things transparently anyway. It's aimed at much less transparent forms of businesses, particularly with vertically integrated wealth managers. And as we said in the update at 12, Bunny is correcting me. It's not just DFMC, and he's gone and clipped something. Very rare anyone on this call would be captured, but also includes some leveraged products in an advisory model. Thank you, Bunny, for correcting me. I tip my hat to you there. But predominantly, I think I'm okay. That these clients will keep getting these. As I say, it's kind of aimed at other forms of business, and you're kind of getting caught in it, which is daft, right? And if you've got an IFA, somebody there, again, Jane's saying, probably better to actually have a conversation with clients and make sure they understand. Completely agree with that. And if you're lucky enough to have an advisor that is working with discretionary powers, fully understands what's going on, has a really good partnership with the platform or whoever's sending the letters out, then that works absolutely brilliantly. If not, then things can get a little bit weird. And we've definitely seen with some of the online propositions that work under discretionary powers, but which don't have any kind of advice capability, where you get a 10% drop letter, says, "Dear Mark, your portfolio's dropped by 10%. Sorry to hear that. Hope you're all right. Love, AN, other robo or whatever. Please don't phone us up for any advice because we can't give you any advice." And you're left going, well, not really sure what to do. And there's a really interesting discussion I have, probably for another day, right? But a really interesting discussion I have about business that's discretionary but not advised. Most clients of anybody on this call are advised and discretionary managed, but there's a cohort of clients out there that are one and not the other, and they do have the potential to be properly spooked by this. So basically, I think from a UK context, it's really problematic regulation. Sincere hopes that it doesn't come back at the end of September and we find a way of getting rid of it. Just looking at a couple of comments. There's John Farmer. I think that's John from Premium. Also potential for all to be logged as breaches. The FCA will just not use enforcement action, need clarity, and most firms will just continue to send. I think that's probably right. Who's going to really put a massive process change in for just a few months? There's a cost in inputting the process change in and then getting the process live again. So you will probably find, if you're an advisor listening to this call, that you keep getting those alerts, but after the first one, you won't need to pass them on to clients. So there you are. That's just out this morning. Just thought I'd stick it in there. Now, I said we'd have a little think about time machines, and that's weird. And just for interest, really, we are thinking about digital business and technology today. I'm going to read a bit of Stan's comment out in a second, but you might have a look at it as good quality, Stan. Thank you. We asked firms in the big survey that we did tail end of last year that if we gave you a time machine, right, with no consequences at all, you could change the technology that you use, or you could keep it. Which would you do? These are the answers that we got. So 85% of firms, the orange bars I'd choose the same, I'd keep it the same. The grey bars are no, I'd change it up. So only 15% of firms would change their investment research. That's brilliant news if you're FE Analytics or if you're Morningstar. So most people seem pretty happy there. Cash flow planning, y'all are pretty happy with your cash flow planning tools. Slightly under 20% would pick something different, but generally you're fine with Cash Calc or Voyant or Truth or whatever it is that you're using. A surprising one for me, 70% of firms said they'd pick the same platform. And yet we see firms looking around all over the place for different platforms, but only 30% of our respondents said they'd look to do something different. So I guess that can mean one of two things. Either it can mean people are genuinely really happy, or, and when we looked at the vox pops, the verbatim responses that came with some of these answers, quite a lot of advisors saying, look, there's no difference really. I just couldn't be bothered thinking of anything different. A kind of plague on all your houses, and that's really interesting. So how commoditized, again, a conversation we might have in some future weeks, how commoditized has platform sector become? Risk profiling about the same. That's quite interesting. Nearly a third of people would change up their risk profiling. And then as we go along, client portals and client reporting, I think people are looking for something a little bit more there. I think that's more indicative of maybe the developments that we've hoped to see in those kind of areas haven't been as fast. So I think we get a kind of hunger for something more there. And the one that I think most advisors have expressed a little bit of displeasure with is back office systems, and looking for things to be made a little bit smoother, a little bit easier to use there. We didn't particularly ask people if they would move from what to what, because it's not about that, but it's kind of interesting. So there's lots and lots of bits of technology that go into making an advisor proposition, and most of you, by the looks of it, would keep roughly the same stuff, which is interesting. Now, with that, I want to come on to the bit where we're going to chat with Tim, but I can't see him, so I'm going to invite him back again and see if we can get him, because he's back, is he? There he is. I'm inviting him on screen. Cross your fingers, everybody. Any Tims? Careful where you say that, particularly if it's in Glasgow. Oh my word!
Hello!
Hello! Oh, look at this! Look, I'm going to make you big. Look,
Oh,
look! It's a Tim. Hey!
Hello, everyone.
Oh, that's magnificent. Tim. We're extremely happy to see you, Tim. Sorry that you've had some technical problems, but the good news is that I think I covered it. We're all good. Right. Everyone's very happy to see you. Right. Okay. Let's get back to this one then. So digital business, Tim. I've pulled in just a couple of bits here from the platform analyzer system. This is about signatureless business, and just popped a couple of updates in there from firms about what they're doing. Some like Multrees removed signatures, Transact taking paperless stuff, Aegon providing editable PDFs, Parmenion, Eccentric, Nucleus, lots of others accepting some scan stuff. And I just picked a few platforms. You can see there AJ Bell, Funds Network, Nucleus Standard, and Transact, just to show the different approaches to accepting new business, which is the top 2 lines, and withdrawals, which is the bottom 2 lines. So where do you think we are, Mr. Page? Come on, with digital business and getting the industry working a little bit more smoothly?
It's in my view, a bit mixed picture. I'm really glad that this pandemic, if we had to have one, is happening now rather than say 5 or 10 years ago. We for those of you who don't know me, small big mouth IFA from Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk, can't resist the smooth talking Scot, which is why I'm on here. We've been using platforms since 2002. They revolutionized our business in the mid-noughties, like many of you I know. So similar experience. I think we're incredibly lucky in our business. Everything's in the cloud. Our CRM system, Microsoft 365, Teams. Our VoIP phones follow us around. We're using online AML software and stuff like this, which means that I'm working from home today. There's only one person in our business in the office. Everyone else is working virtually. That's fantastic. It's kind of clunky, but it is working. The one thing that means that someone, and it's my brother who's in the office today, has to be in the office, is to go and pick up the post and scan it. And most of that post is, well, some of it's from clients who don't want to use our client portal, but that's changing fast. And then the main reason why we have to go to the office is to pick up the post from the platform providers that want stuff on wet signatures still. So that's a real frustration, which is why I got in touch with you, Mark. Now, to be fair to the platforms that we work with, I mean, they seem to have got the whole home working thing quite well, in the sense that we're able to still talk to real life people on the end of a phone. It's possible evidence that some of the processing has slowed down a little bit, maybe, which is understandable, but less than ideal. The easements that we've seen and you've identified there are welcome, but they kind of bit of a sticking plaster, I think. It really comes down to, with a lot of these guys and a lot of stuff we've seen, is we'll accept a scanned form from you, which is great. Thank you very much indeed. You've just saved us a couple of 3 days. But it seems to me that we still have to, in lots of ways, have to get a piece of paper to a client and get them to sign it and get it back again somehow. If the client has the ability, and lots of them do, they can do that over by email and stuff like that. But lots of clients still aren't there, so it's really only a small step forward, I think. And I'd like to. I mean, they know they need to do more, and hopefully we will see more in the next few months. I would argue that it's fairly existential to them if they don't. We are. If you look beyond the headlines and you look at the modelling that's been done by Imperial College and all the rest of it, a significant proportion of our clients are likely to be in lockdown for a very long time, and they might come out of lockdown for a bit, but then we might go back in again. So we're kind of looking at not exactly a new normal, but something that's going to be around. This is not just about getting everybody through ISA season. It's going to happen longer than this. And so this is going to be around for a while. And then on the other side of things, you've got platforms that are already doing this. So, for example, I transferred my children's JISAs over to Vanguard a few weeks ago, and it was, I hate to tell everybody this, it was a really pleasant experience up to the point at which the seeding platform provider had demanded a wet signature for the authority to transfer. And Vanguard are only using FNZ. They're not doing anything fantastically clever. So if Vanguard can do it, everybody else should do it. And it's not just the direct-to-consumer boys. You've got one or two new platforms coming in that we're talking to, and from the conversations that we've had, these guys are incredibly busy. So if you're a platform provider, an old platform provider that's not doing this properly and providing proper electronic signatures and not moving on from scam platforms, then you need to know that the money's moving now as we speak. Now it's only a trickle, but this is I think this is an existential moment for
so the kind of standard kind of comeback, I guess, from some of the platforms is, we hear you, but we are worried about fraud, we worried about relaxing standards and all that kind of stuff. And a couple of guys in the chat there mentioning scams and fraudsters and all that kind of stuff. What do you where do you stand on that side of things?
I really feel for an awful lot of the operations guys on these platforms, and I'm sure they were very interesting conversations that were had in order to get compliance science off on a lot of this stuff, because these are institutions, they're naturally conservative. But my answer is, well, if you set up a bank account with Starling Bank and Monzo using completely digitally, you can set up an account with Vanguard completely digitally. The technology is there. The technology is there. There's no longer an excuse to hold back on this.
You're right, and there's I don't know if I can. No, I can't do it. But Ben Fabi's just put a really good link in the chat for anyone that's not got the chat open with ICO.
Yeah. Also, I mean, we've been, at our firm, we've been signing contracts with suppliers using DocuSign for years and years and years.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we can now, for the last 18 months, we've been able to link that into our back office system with our client portal. So we've been getting, lots of client consent electronically for, 18 months now. Come on, guys, please get on with it.
Oh, that's really interesting. And is the wet signature part of kind of the technology side of things, is that the biggest kind of issue that you can identify with this stuff? Is that what causes the most kind of lost time in admin processes? Because if you think about it, you've got, you have a conversation with the client and you say, yes, let's do this. And for a process where you need a wet signature, you've got to go away, do the forms, get the forms to the client, get the client to sign it, and then get it up to the platform. If you can do it electronically, it's just like that. Yeah. Just for Richard too, I replied to Richard. We're using IntelliFlow, and their portal has you can plug in DocuSign into their portal. And it seems like those kind of tech-centric firms, like IntelliFlow, it's not a platform yet, but it's certainly got lots and lots of interesting tendrils all over the place. Absolutely no problem with integrating those kinds of technologies, but it seems unusual. So that's really the key one. Somebody said further up the chat as well, no incentive for platforms to change. If you look at that last slide we did, that 70% of firms say, we just stick where we are anyway. So do you honestly believe that obviously in your business, the financial planning hub of Bury St Edmunds, you'll start to favor platforms that can facilitate quicker business and lose.
Yes, and we've got a Zoom conversation booked with a platform on Thursday.
Yeah,
it's going to happen that quickly.
And they can facilitate signatureless and.
The initial conversation I've had with them is end-to-end digital, no wet signatures.
And with that, and kind of last question, I guess, there is, do you still think that once you've gone through that, if everything, all other things being equal, would you still have confidence in them without them getting the signed bit of paper? Is there anything that kind of knocks your confidence in that provider if they do have a lower evidential standard, if we agree that it is a lower standard?
Yeah, I don't agree with your premise.
Well, you should. No, you shouldn't. But so it wouldn't make any difference to you at all. You don't think that the doing it all digitally is a lower standard?
Well, the part of the reason is we've been using, so to answer some of the questions that have been coming up, we use predominantly Nucleus, and they've moved a bit, and they're still answering the phone, which is nice. Transact and Wealth Time, and so we've not really noticed any problems with ringing any of those guys up. We use Smart Search for our digital anti-money laundering check. Yeah. So we've been doing it, like I say, for well over a year, possibly 2 years now on this sort of stuff. So when you use it yourself, you know, it's the more you use it, the more confidence you have in this sort of stuff. And the problem is, all these people who get hung up on wetted signatures forget the fact that people forge wet signatures. Yeah. And they don't understand that the wet signature isn't just a click. It's, if you go into DocuSign and all the rest of it, the wet signature is not the silly squiggle that you see on the document. It's the incredible audit that you come behind it, that you get with it. That's the digital signature, and that's the proof that Joe Blogs at this IP address clicked this button at this time, having reviewed this document.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, that's brilliant. Now listen, we are kind of at our time, so we'll say thank you very much to Tim, and never know, maybe get you back again, Tim. There's been loads of really useful comments at the side. I think when we finish this up, the session's all recorded and you come see it, and I think the chat stays as well. And this, more than any other one I've been on for ages, actually, there's loads of really interesting stuff down the side, including some praise for firms that are doing really well. So we'll just about call it there. I've got one or two more things to say. I'm going to tell you a very, very quick joke because I need cheering up, and you might do as well. This isn't a Barry Cryer joke this week, and it's a very, very old joke, but I love it. It is simply that a man walks into a bar with a giraffe, as so often happens. It's either a very small giraffe or a very high bar, and says, "A pint for me, please," and a pint for my mate, the giraffe. And the barman looks and then realizes he's in a joke, so it's actually okay, and he serves 2 pints, and the guy says, "Actually, my friend the giraffe will need his in a bowl, please." So all right, okay, pours the pint into a bowl, and they both drink their pints. Quick, smart, next pint. Well, that's great. Can I have one more, please? And so it goes on, until everyone's reeling. We're about 12 pints in at this point, and the barman says, lads, you've had enough. It's time to go. And the guy says, "Oh, just one more, man. Just one more for me and one more for my friend the giraffe." And he says, "No, I'm sorry, you need to go." So they both get up swaying and head for the door. And as they do that, the giraffe just falls like that to the floor. And the guy looks round at the giraffe and goes and walks off through the door. And just as he's about to go through the door, the barman says, Oi, pal, listen, you can't leave that lion there." The guy goes, "Oh, it's not a lion, it's a giraffe." And that's your joke for this week. I hope everyone has a safe week. As always, if you are feeling that you want to do something to help other people, you can do much, much worse than helping with the Samaritans. I'll say this every single week. We hear again that demand for their services has never been higher. And when you think about what that actually means, it's not a great place to be. So do please support whoever you need to support, but Samaritans would be very, very grateful. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week at 12:30. Cheers.